effective leadership facilitate change in an organization? You know, change can be very complex, daunting, and challenging. But did you know leadership plays an important part in facilitating the success of a change initiative? Well, I've got the recipe. You want to hear it? Let's cook. Change is one of the most relevant aspects of business today. In fact, it's so relevant, I've spent days, weeks, years of my life pouring into creating content, training, keynotes, and workshops to help individuals just like you grow and champion change. Did you know that leadership can play a pretty significant role in facilitating change in your team or organization? By the end of this video, you're going to be armed with the important aspects or the recipe of leadership's role in facilitating change. From what they should be taking responsibility for, to what they should be holding themselves accountable to, and finally, 2 very important skills they should be practicing throughout the journey. The first aspect of the effective leadership that can facilitate successful change throughout a business is to take responsibility for role modeling those desired behaviors, right? I remember that I was working with a client and they talked about how they no longer want to have executive sponsorship. Those that are just throwing budget at it, maybe sending one email, showing up into a town hall, saying a couple sentences and then kind of being absent. Rather, they want executive examples. Executives that are going to role model stepping into that change, embodying what's required to achieve the future state. Whatever those actions are, those behaviors, the tools that they want folks to be using, the new beliefs that they want to entrench within the organization and within the culture. They are taking responsibility to become role models of that. That's how effective leadership can really start to influence and facilitate moving that change forward towards success. Second aspect is that they hold themselves accountable for the success of that change. And that's whether or not the CEO or the C-level executives have pointedly told them that they're going to be held accountable. Rather, they take the initiative and say, you know what, I'm bought in. I'm ready to make this thing a reality. And I'm going to hold myself accountable to making sure that we're successful. So that looks like making sure that they're making the effort, they're providing the resources, they're providing the support and the perspective necessary that's perhaps being asked of them, of other leaders, or perhaps their change management team, of the ones responsible for doing the change, and they're being open to providing that support, providing whatever help is requested in order to make the change a reality, knowing in their hearts that I'm accountable for making this change a success. By the way, if you're digging this, leadership, change, resiliency, get subscribed right now. I do videos like this all the time, giving really, really high value content, and I want to make sure that it gets to you as soon as possible, as soon as it drops. So make sure you click subscribe. You'll be one of the first to get notified. All right, let's get back into it. The third aspect is 2 skills that are so important for a leader to practice throughout a change journey, and that is empathy and vulnerability. I think far too often things like empathy and vulnerability are classified or tagged as soft skills, as if they're secondary, an afterthought. I think more and more these are simply critical skills, very important skills that every leader needs to embody, and they're not easy. It actually takes a lot of courage and a lot of practice to do this in an effective way. But going through change, when times are volatile, when there's a lot of complexity, when the emotional landscape of an organization or team is really complex and tumultuous, it's so important that leaders are taking it upon themselves to express that empathetic leadership. Holding space, as the daring Brene Brown tells us, holding space, simply listening, not passing judgment, and conveying that very healing message of you are not alone. When a leader can do that, somebody who's sitting in a position that's higher up in the organization, or someone who just has a lot of influential prowess and power, it can be so very effective in helping those individuals re-engage and enroll in the change initiative. And the other is around vulnerability, and what I like to call confident vulnerability. It means that you're sharing the more difficult aspects of the change that you're experiencing, something that might be inspiring frustration or anger, or maybe even fear or anxiety in you, but you're doing it in a way such that it's rooted in the vision, in the mission of where you're going, where you want to take the organization as a part of that particular change. I was doing some work with a huge Fortune 100 company, and they were going through a massive transformation, the biggest transformation that they'd seen in over a century. They're actually splitting their business into three separate companies. And I can remember one mid-level manager that I was working with who told me that it was when the senior leaders started to show vulnerability within their town halls, within their speaking engagements, and through email, that she saw a step change in the engagement, not only in herself, but also in her organization as well. When those in leadership or high-level management positions can get brave and courageous to share their own vulnerability, it's like you create this conduit for the emotional energy of the employees to flow as well, granting permission that it's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. And once that permission is granted, you can start talking about it and get about the business of transforming that energy into fuel to move forward. But ultimately, leaders are showing their humanity, showing their authentic self when they can step into confident vulnerability. And it can go so far to facilitate the success of change in an organization. If you got value from that, I've got something else for you, and it's for free. So I want to offer you a keynote recording snippet, and it was a keynote that I delivered to an organization going through a tremendous amount of change and disruption, both internal to their business as well as externally in the market. And specifically, this clip that I'm offering you is where I'm sharing my insights, my perspective, and research we've conducted at my consulting company to help others lead through change when those around them are feeling resistant or those more difficult emotions of change. And it's yours today for free. Just click subscribe below. I want to make sure that you have the data, the insights, and the research to fuel your growth through even your most difficult change challenges. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until next time, keep growing and keep rocking.